anything with the word devil seemed very exciting. In fact, the Tasmanian devils were a little underwhelming once we actually started to see pictures of it, but I was going to Australia, we were looking at pictures of Tasmanian devils. And he got up to go to the bathroom. And so I started checking my email. I had an email from Israel, a friend in Israel, and it was a link. So I clicked on the link. The link was of a Palestinian man in the West Bank being arrested. He was being arrested because he had illegally tried to connect his village, his village up to the water system that was connecting some nearby settlements. As you may know, the question of water in the West Bank has been a big issue for a long time amongst human rights types. According to B'Tselem, settlers use about 4 times as much water as in the West Bank as do Palestinians, which means they often happen to have swimming pools and fairly lush irrigation, but you find that the water consumption rates amongst Palestinians in the West Bank are often, according to international studies, quite dangerously low, and that you have a whole series of villages that are in fact not connected to any water system at all. This happened to be a very, very hot day in a very, very hot place, and this man was trying to connect his village up to a stream of water. This disparity in water rates shouldn't really surprise any of us particularly. Settlers in the West Bank can vote for the government that makes water policy decisions. Palestinians cannot, so it's really not that surprising that you could have this inequity like many, many other inequities. But this man was being kind of taken away into some kind of paddy wagon-like vehicle, and it was a difficult scene to watch. There were women around who were screaming, and then I noticed in the video there was also a boy. And the boy looked roughly about the size, my son is the age of my son. And he was trying in a kind of somewhat hysterical way to get to his father. And of course he was prevented from getting to his father. And I was listening, watching, and then I noticed that he was yelling to his father the words Baba, Baba. And it kind of stopped me cold because when my son was little, we thought that he would call me Abba, but he couldn't say Abba. So he started calling me Baba, which is the word that is stuck now. He's passed on to his sister. So here, coming through my computer screen, is this little boy, and he's yelling Baba as his son is being taken away. And then I see my son is coming back from the bathroom. Shit, where are these Tasmanian devils when you need them? Of course, I switched off back to the Tasmanian devils. But I began to think about this. What happens when he's 8, when he's 12, when he's 16? My son is a little budding Zionist. He has a homemade, he goes to Jewish school, he has a homemade Israeli flag in his room. He doesn't really know anything about the Palestinians, but I have noticed he's become very anti-Egyptian as a result of the Passover story. I haven't really even had the heart to tell him that we made peace with them. I thought, what am I going to do when I'm no longer in control of the computer? I won't be able to just turn it off. And after being interested in this story, I read a little bit about it. It turns out the Israeli government, the IDF, had an explanation for this incident because it was getting around. And the explanation was that the boy had been put up to it, that it was a cynical ploy. The boy had been told to act in a particularly distraught and hysterical manner as his father was being taken away because they knew that there were some camera crews there. I thought I could tell my son that. If he encounters something. So I can tell him, look, this was staged. This is not authentic grief. You should not see yourself in this child. You should, in fact, see this as more evidence that these people are completely alien to you. What people would actually stage a scene like this and put the child up to this in this staged way? I could make that effort to kind of completely emotionally and morally distance him from what was the emotional power of this experience. And I think in many ways that has been what the American Jewish establishment has been trying to do for many decades now. The ADL, Anti-Defamation League, recently took out ads saying that settlements are not a problem. That the American Jewish establishment put a lot of effort into, if not being able to turn off the computer completely, at least into finding debaters' points, ways of essentially distancing us from any sense of empathy or connection to Palestinian suffering, any actual real engagement with the reality of what an occupation is, what it means to have essentially a group of mostly powerless people who don't have control over the apparatus of the state that controls their lives. And I think this strategy has failed. And it's failed in a particular way that concerns me. I think it's failed to create liberal Zionists. I think it's failed to create the kind of Zionist that I want my son to be. A Zionist who not only loves Israel because he's a Jew, and Israel is a Jewish state, and because he believes that Jews deserve a Jewish state, but who loves Israel because Israel is a liberal democracy, and is willing to fight for Israeli liberal democracy, not only against the Mahmoud Ahmadinejads of the world, but against the Avigdor Lieberman and Avad Yosefs of the world, against the internal threats to Israeli liberal democracy, as well as the external threats. It seems to me the American Jewish establishment, even as it mouths the words of saying that it admires Israel because Israel is a liberal democracy, has failed in a signature way to create that kind of liberal Zionism amongst young American Jews. And I want to talk a little bit about the structure of the American Jewish establishment vis-a-vis Israel to try to explain why I think that is.